Hey everyone, the demand for customer success managers is ever rising. And with that, we need to be a little bit more sophisticated in how we are approaching the hiring process for CSMs. And I have today Galon with me to share a framework on how to create different customer success managers' profiles so that your hiring CSM process becomes a lot more efficient, effective, and you can get the right resources into your teams. And so, if you are in the process of hiring additional customer success managers to your team or thinking about how you can improve your current hiring CSM process, stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We are going to talk about hiring CSMs with Galon, VP of Customer Success at Hysolate. Welcome, Guy.
Hi, Rit. Thanks for having me.
Guy, just before we dive into your framework and how to create profiles for CSMs when hiring, tell me a little bit about, your current team at Hysolate. How long have you been working there and what's the size of your team?
I've been working in Hysolate for 2 years already. We are a team of 5 people that do mixed customer success and support activities. The teams are customer success engineers and CSMs. Few of them have a customer success experience and few of them actually did not have, and were recruited based on the framework which I came up with that helped me to actually find them.
Which brings me to the main point of this framework. The reason you created it is because the market is tough, meaning it's hard to come up with, hiring only customer success managers that have a strong customer success management experience.
That's true. I think all CS leaders, CSMs, the market is growing very, very fast, and customer success domain is relatively young, if we call it like that. And we all know there's a shortage of experienced people. There are great people out there, but there's a shortage of experienced customer success people. So the question is, are you going to just look for those experienced people? And also, there's the payment and remuneration part of it, of how much you pay them, or you can broaden your search or your definition of what you're looking for and look for people with customer success management or customer management experience and look for different profiles. Maybe they don't have customer success in their CV, but they've had enough experience handling customers in different situations and they could be a good fit for you. I had some interesting hires. I need to keep things confidential, but one of them came from a government intelligence agency, but
Wow.
he had great project management and account management skills, not as a customer success, but he was amazing fit at the time. I also had one who was a kind of a sales/account manager at the time, didn't handle customers in the post-sale cycle, but he was great in terms of attitude and knowing how to do difficult discussions. So he was, again, very easily getting into customer success.
Tell me a little bit about, your framework and how to create profiles for CSMs when hiring. If you liked what you've heard so far, that's awesome. More coming in a second here, but in the meantime, I want you to click that like button so that YouTube knows that this is great content and you can start sharing it with others.
This framework is actually based on just the experience that I had with in Isolate and in previous places. And I looked at 4 categories, if you want to call it, or subdomains of CSMs. One of them is the one with the project management style, program management style, those people who actually know how to plan. They understand customer requirements, they understand prioritization, time management, roles and responsibilities, risk management. This is one profile. People that handled customers in those situations, are, from my perspective, are potentially a good fit for customer success. That's one profile. The other profile is those who are more of on a consultative role, domain expertise, the trusted advisor profile, that if you want to call it, those people that come with industry experience, not necessarily the pure customer success, but they advise customers. They know what customer requirements are. They know how to present. They know how to understand what the business case is, what the use cases are, and how to articulate value. The third profile will be what I call account management / negotiation skills / difficult discussion type of person. This guy or this lady that they had the experience handling customer in difficult situations. Maybe they did some renewals in account management capacity. They are not afraid of handling difficult conversations, whether they are more of a commercial or maybe the operational, God forbid, product malfunctions and so on. And the fourth profile is what I call the data and analytics type of person. This guy or lady that loves to look at reports, dashboards, data, and try to understand, how their customers use the product, how they can better use the product. Maybe they have some technical skills. They know how to write code or scripts, enhance their understanding of how customers work with their product. So if you take those four profiles into consideration, you may be able to broaden your recruitment span and find those people that did a lot of customer management, maybe not. They didn't mention it as customer success, but I feel, and my experience indicates, that those people definitely can get into customer success roles quite quickly.
You know what I love about these four profiles? I mean, you could have a candidate that actually has two of these strong suits, but it's like, these are the core four strong suits that I'm looking for to have a wholesome team. That's what I'm hearing.
Exactly. So if I could find one with all four profiles, that person will be Superman or Supergirl. But in reality, as you mentioned, they will have probably two of those four, which is good fit, I think. And then the next step is to kind of create this balance in your team and find out how you can get different profiles. Moreover, it can help you and them to develop additional skills once you map what they are strong at and you know how the full framework looks like, you will be able to develop their careers even further, which I think your CSM will value very much because you're helping them to improve. Hopefully you will retain them in your team.
Do you also use these four core skill sets or profiles, as you call it, as your framework to develop seniority within your team?
Yes, but not from the perspective of account management is senior to project management, but in the sense that, you have islands of knowledge or experience in the team. So if I have someone who is very good in project management or account management, I can make them more of their experts in their domain and let them lead some training or on-the-job training and even mentor some of their colleagues and build their capabilities, not just on those domains, but build them, if you want to call it the managerial domain, so they can further develop their career. So this is how I see it. You first have these skills or expertise, but how much you are able to develop other colleagues in your team and help them improve on those domains.
Interesting. I was kind of thinking, if another option to use this framework is to think, okay, I can bring in someone with data analysis into the team that's not as strong in project management or domain expertise or, negotiating skills. But then as I look at their progression in terms of self-development or professional development within my team, I'm going to provide them with coaching, mentorship, classes to develop negotiation skills so that gradually they can have better skills in all four profiles.
Yes, whatever I mentioned is not a discounting or in contrast to having a training. By the way, that's definitely a good option. At least I practice it in my teams to try and get people to help each other and train each other, especially if it's during their job. So you learn very quickly and you learn practical things. I'm not saying that formal training, you're not learning practical things, but it's maybe a good mix will be a good combination. I think this model works very well for me in smaller organization. I mean, if you look at a CS organization that will scale, I think seniority, it may eventually become a seniority thing. So you can master or be very strong in all those four domains and you gradually develop yourself within the bigger team.
I agree. And I think that you could say the more wholesome you are, the bigger, stronger accounts you can handle.
Exactly. So that's another option. So if there's SMBs and there are the enterprise accounts and you did not have maybe the negotiation skill or the renewal experience before, but you have them now, maybe you are ready to face some new challenges with enterprise accounts, for example.
So maybe we can get into some tactical advice around how to hire each one of these profiles. Like when you hire somebody with data analysis skills, or you're looking to hire someone with data analysis skills, what kind of questions or tests do you put them through to make sure that this is a very strong core competency that they have? Before we continue, Don't forget, subscribe to our YouTube channel and smash that notification button so that you don't miss out on any new videos.
Let's take that analysis. So the first question that I will ask, what kind of problem or challenge did you have before that you were able to solve with data analysis? And the context of customers. This is the ultimate question. And if I get decent answers about understanding business challenge, commercial challenge, use case, something that resonates very well with the requirements, then this is one part. And then understanding the technical part of what kind of tools, what kind of expertise you used to do that. If this person has some, let's say, coding skills, scripting skills, then we will put it into a test. Not a very difficult one, but just to see if this person actually can deliver certain scripts. And maybe I've done it at least a few times. The question is how much this person can also articulate whatever they found in terms of data analysis. So what kind of presentation skills you have. It's not mandatory. I would love to have that, but this is something that you can work on. If somebody truly understands customer challenges and how to solve them with data, have decent presentation skills, then I believe that this is definitely a good fit. So that's data analytics.
How do you know if a person is a good planner or executioner, as you call it?
First of all, the CV needs to indicate, or they need to explain what kind of projects they managed, what kind of implementations, software, hardware related, it may be something else, but I need to see that they understand what scope management is, how you take scope and break it down to different components, how they manage timelines. Do they understand what roles and responsibilities are between a vendor and a customer, and how you actually manage that throughout the time? And risk management as well, because we all, as in customer facing roles, we have to assess risks. So those kind of, let's say, project management building blocks, they need to prove solid experience to qualify themselves for the role.
What kind of an assignment or a task do you recommend hiring managers to give when they are hiring for that profile to just test those skills out?
If you're hiring for a role in your company is actually about, let's say, complicated onboarding, then I would take a use case or example case study, maybe without customer details, but definitely something that represents a few of the challenges that you have, and ask the candidate, how would you approach? Okay, so you have this solution, you have this customer who's that size, we have 10 different integrations. The timelines is 6 weeks or 8 weeks to complete. These are the customer expectations. You got this set of requirements from the sales team after they completed the process. What's the approach? How are you going to manage that? What will be your first few activities? What kind of questions do you ask? What's missing from your perspective? And it does not have to be an assignment where they actually create a project plan, but I need to understand their line of thinking. What kind of leading questions or what kind of steps they're taking into breaking this assignment to clear activities with timelines, understanding some risks, who they need to talk with, what kind of communication they put in place, all the project management fun stuff.
Yeah, I would even give them either like a role play or a presentation. So I would even either give them present a kickoff call to us as if we are the customers, or I would give them a role play of a difficult situation where a customer was accountable for delivering certain data set or something like that. So we can proceed with either a professional services gig or an onboarding gig. And like, how do you handle if they're super late? Negotiation skills. Do you have any specific, like from your experience or domain expertise, how do you test for that? What kind of questions do you ask?
So negotiation skills comes together with difficult discussions. So I think the two cases where I like to test, first of all, customer requested a certain feature request, which we all agreed to deliver. However, there were other priorities that the customer is not aware of, and we need to delay that. So how would you communicate and how would you engage? This is definitely a role simulation. I simulate the customer. I ask the candidate to explain to me how he or she would explain to the customer the reason for a delay, and this delay has an impact on them in terms of their expectations. And for the difficult discussions, you can take any support or critical defect scenario that was eventually fixed. We can decide how much time we were down or what kind of impact the customer had, and then you need to go back and explain the root cause analysis and what happened. And again, it could be faked, but it's more about how the candidate speaks and communicate in this situation where the other person will be a bit more edgy, if you want to call it, in terms of, that was a very bad situation. We suffered from it. It gets the other person to be able to manage my expectations as a customer.
All right. So then domain expertise. I think that one is like easier. You could just basically look at their resume and see if they worked in that industry, sat in the customer's seat, ever?
Correct, but at the same time, you could, again, if they are very good at what they do, but maybe I would not ask them technical questions or questions specific about their domain of expertise, but I'll ask how they use their domain of expertise working with customers. So I said there could be consultants come from some kind of consultancy role, how they brought their proficiency and expertise. Give me example how you were helpful or valuable to the customer. Another question is, okay, there were some challenges, always challenges, even if you're a consultant. What kind of challenges you ran into? Were you in a situation where you had to talk to two different stakeholders and each one of them had a different agenda, and how did you manage that? So there are a lot of soft skills involved as well, besides the technical, the domain expertise that you can check to see that this guy or this lady it's not the Wild West in terms of throwing a lot of things on the customer and expecting them to manage everything.
How do you test for their ability to articulate value to customers?
It's a good question because, initially I would say, okay, let's take my product and see how they can explain it, but maybe they don't know it enough. So it's one option. You can tell them, search our website, search our use cases. How would you describe our value? That's one option. The other option is take their experience, especially if they were domain experts or consultants. Which company you worked for? What kind of product did you implement? Or what kind of service you implemented? Now explain to me why it was unique and why it was valuable to your customers.
Well, I do notice that the technical expertise is missing from your profiles. Is your type of product that your company sells does not require deep technical expertise?
It does. From my perspective, the technical experience comes, and maybe it's not highlighted in everything I said so far, but it does come up under domain expertise because some of those people, especially in Hysolate, you had to work and understand virtualization and endpoint operating systems to be considered as a domain expert in cybersecurity in the technical domains. So it's not just a kind of business understanding, and the other technical skills can come in the data analytics type of person especially, but it's not a must. I ran into people who had these technical skills and some of them didn't, but most of them will come from some kind of a domain expertise background.
So I think in your world, that makes sense. I'll give you an example where I think I might have actually created a fifth profile for technical expertise versus domain expertise. For example, let's say you have a very sophisticated solution that you sell to retailers. So a domain expert would be somebody that understands retail or e-commerce. Actually, most likely they don't come with deep technical expertise, but they understand the customer's language. And then you have to choose how many of those are you going to hire versus the ones that have deep technical expertise that can do the customization, the really sophisticated configurations without you having to call somebody from R&D, from somebody from tier 3 support, so that your team is a bit more independent. We call those subject matter experts, like the product technical experts within the team.
Yes, but by the way, with this model, as I said, is definitely a flexible one. So you can definitely add more profiles. A technical profile, in your example, is definitely required to actually distinguish between business domain expertise versus technical expertise that is required to configure or to do some integration and so on.
So it depends on the industry. If you're come from, if you're sell to engineers, you probably already have the technical expertise if you're a domain expert.
So I agree. If I take cybersecurity, for example, or
manufacturing,
DevOps solutions that you have today, the people that will come to this role inherently have some technical knowledge and technical expertise that you can verify. I agree that selling to retailers, e-commerce sites, insurance,
customer success,
customer success, those domains, yes, require significant business and understanding, and then the technical aspects needs to come on top.
Yeah. Even it really depends on which role are you selling into. When you sell to a role that's already an engineering role, it doesn't even have to do with the industry. And I want to correct myself too. Then probably your domain expert is your technical expert. Somebody may say not always, but let's say that it does. If you're selling to any department, any team that's not technical, you're going to have hired for both profiles, more likely to just be scalable. It's not unheard of to find somebody that has both consultative skills, domain expertise, and really deep technical expertise, but it's very hard. So it's not a scalable model.
I agree. I think eventually this framework, I built it just to handle the challenge of recruitment and adapt it to my world, which was cybersecurity in recent years. But I think it's more of a mindset for CS leaders to understand that it's not about settling down for less qualified people, but just look at it or the recruitment challenge from a different perspective by using different profiles and matching it to your requirements. And that will help you, of course.
One last tip, Guy. Where do you go post about new jobs? Can you share any tips or, how do you find these rare gems besides Indeed.com and LinkedIn.com?
LinkedIn is definitely the usual suspect because it's a professional community and you also ask other people in your company to help with promoting. So you get a meaningful impact. I can say that with those two people that I mentioned before, not even headhunters, just when thinking about those profiles, then you ask at least the management team, you ask friends, use your own private network. You can use headhunters. I'm not saying you can't, but it's not necessarily easy because they need to understand this framework. So you can understand explain the framework, and then let them help you with finding those people, and you can fine tune, what kind of profiles you look for. But my experience was that mainly use your own private network, use knowledge of other people, and look for them. But it's not scalable. I agree. This is not necessarily the best practice.
Guy, thank you very much. This was a fascinating discussion. I love that you put it in a framework because I do agree that most executives don't think in that perspective. They're just thinking, what is the customer success manager's job description that I have? And then let's give it to the HR department and let's hire for those. But I think it's really, you should take a pause after each hire and say, okay, this particular hire or all the hires that I've done already, where do they sit in this framework? What kind of profiles do I already have? What profile am I missing? And then try to shoot for that one and make it known. We're looking for a CSM like has strong suits of data analysis, or that's a really good in negotiating skills, or is really good at project management, because that's the piece that's missing. And I hope that this is the main takeaway from this video, because it will help you hire customer success managers better. And if you're watching this and you are in the process of being hired, ask them, what are the core skills that are most important for the next hire? Maybe your hiring manager kind of knows what's sort of like missing, or what are they looking for the most, or what is most important for them, and highlight what are your core competencies based on this framework. Guy, any other tips or advice or resources that you would like to recommend to others to get better at hiring customer success managers, or just becoming a better CS executive?
Let's say this framework was based on my experience, but I read a lot about onboarding, generally about onboarding new employees, not necessarily customer success. So I do recommend for customer success leaders and executives who are managing team is also to expand their horizon and understand what are the best practices of recruiting and onboarding. There's a full life cycle. I call it the CSM journey, like customer journey, that we walk through when we recruit, onboard, train, and eventually develop their careers. So all this process is not happening on its own. You need to be mindful of that. Generally, make sure you are in the best position to understand what your team looks like, what your team needs, what your business as a vendor needs, and just break it down to meaningful profiles that you can later use in recruiting, in building the right mix in your team, and so on.
Guy, thank you so much for joining us today. And everyone who's watching, if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, give it a like, subscribe to our YouTube channel. It really helps the channel a lot. And so if you know anybody else that could benefit from this video, please share it with them, post on LinkedIn, post on Twitter. Love you very much for watching this video. And of course, I will see you at the next video.